The Dutch elections of 1848 were held immediately after the implementation of a new liberal constitution, which laid the groundwork for Dutch parliamentary democracy. A large part of this constitution was written by Johan Rudolph Thorbecke, a liberal politician who stayed around in Dutch politics until his death in 1872. The constitution was largely based on the proposal of the Nine Men, a written proposal by 9 members of the House of Representatives under the leadership of Thorbecke to change the constitution. These were the first direct elections to the Dutch House of Representatives. This House of Representatives would be the first Dutch parliament which could hold the government accountable. In this first election, only males over 23 that paid a certain level of taxation were allowed to vote. This limited the franchise to about 11% of males older than 23 and 2.5% of the total population. Since political parties didn't officially exist until 1879, all candidates were nominally independent, but did sit in parliamentary groups after being elected. 9 days before the election, the new liberal cabinet of Jacobus Matthias de Campenaar was instated. De Campenaar was a liberal and was even part of the Nine Men in 1844 with Thorbecke. But when it turned out Thorbecke wouldn't be a part of the new cabinet, a lot of his supporters turned against it. Although political groups existed, all candidates ran as independents, only joining said groups officially after their election. These groups are as followed. The Conservative group, which was the dominant force within the parliament before the adoption of the new constitution. The Conservatives opposed Enlightenment value and preferred political power to stay with the king. They thus opposed the new constitution. A split-off of the Conservative group, the Catholic Conservatives, also had candidates running in this election. Conservative Protestants also had their own parliamentary group. Conservative Protestants opposed Enlightenment value just like the Conservatives. They thus opposed the democratic revolutions of 1848 and thusly called themselves anti-revolutionaries. The Pragmatic Liberal group was made up mostly out of former conservatives who accepted the new constitution, supported the cabinet of de Campenaar, and were often in favor of economically liberal policies. The Pragmatic Liberals made up the liberal ground between the Thorbeckian liberals and the conservatives and were often willing to work with both. Liberal supporters of both the new constitution and Thorbecke organized themselves into the Thorbeckian liberal group. The group was also heavily in favor of economically liberal policies and often criticized the pragmatic liberals as being opportunists and moralists, and opposed the cabinet of de Campenaar for not including Thorbecke. And here are the results. Turnout in this election was 80.4%. This means that in total about 1.6% of the population voted. The breakdown of the chamber along parliamentary groups went as follows. The Pragmatic Liberals became the largest parliamentary group with an absolute majority of 37 seats. They did pretty solid all over the country, but had a lot of support in cities and gained 8 seats from Amsterdam, Rotterdam and The Hague alone. Thorbeckian Liberals became the second largest group with 19 seats, also doing solid all around the country with a particularly good performance in the south and Groningen. Thorbecke himself ran for parliament in Leiden and won that seat. The Conservatives ended up only gaining 5 seats, only gaining seats in the north and Utrecht. Conservative Catholics won 4 seats, only gaining seats in the south, where most of the country's Catholics lived. The Conservative Catholics had a particularly impressive performance in Limburg, where they became the second largest party. Anti-revolutionaries also ended up with 1 seat in Gelderland, part of the Dutch Bible Belt. Former Speaker of the House and newly elected Member of Parliament for Den Bosch, Johannes Lambertus Antonius didn't agree with either the Liberals or the Conservatives. Antonius believed in both market liberalism, but was also opposed to the new constitution and Enlightenment values. Because of this, he sat alone in the Conservative Liberal group. Former Minister of Foreign Affairs and newly elected Member of Parliament for Hoogeveen, Louis Napoleon van Randwijk, was a hardcore conservative and supporter of the king. He was directly opposed to the Thorbeckian Liberals, but had very few friends in Parliament, and thus started his own one-man group called the Ultra-Conservatives. Liberals of all kinds dominated this election, showing a large amount of support for the new constitution and liberal ideals, ensuring the constitution's long lifespan. Thank you for watching, I'll see you next election and have a nice day. Liberal supporters of both the new constitution and Thorbecke organized themselves into God damn it, I have to sneeze. We're gonna retry that one. Liberal supporters of